told a friend of mine that said that.
Well, it's sports line over my part.
Basically, they had in fact stayed in the yard. Said, well, that's what my friend usually does, and we tried it. Not doing it.
If I ever get bored, like my wife said, she's never going to say
Yeah, right.
Nobody's playing. She and I probably see like the singing ride over the see you later, no damn well. He didn't know. So it is hotel rooms hotel rooms like $80 that they drop. Little piece of that, not that one.
It's all the way.
I couldn't live like that. I mean, it's no, the country is so when you was born, when you down, it's a market. Ask Felix. We didn't have it.
I was talking to some folks up there. I was not bound in my tournament up there during the middle of the winter. What's up, Rob? They could do some ice sand right there or something like that.
Married 3 months now. Past the 90-day warning period. Okay.
Oh, that's a great call.
Yes, it is.
Especially with grandkids. Hey, how's it going?
I know.
I'm great. Good to see
More lane. It's on a big lake.
You run the Iron Man?
It was like a Rose screensaver, right? You had dancing wood boats, you had modern boats, then you had the ferry. Then you had a schooner like this. You had the parasail. You know, like the water thing. It was all happening right there. How big a lake is it?
Really?
They got the golf course there, famous for the floating green artificial islands on cages. So they can move it. So, like, you know, some days it's 100 yards, some days it's 175. You hit your ball. Yeah. And they, you hit your ball and you can get on a boat. And the boat takes you out to the island. And you putt out, and the boat brings you back. 14 holes. You only get 2 shots. That's it. And I thought that was going to be a one-trick play.
Here we go.
Very nice. Mountain.
Please come to order. The August sports session of the East Chapel Rotary Club is now underway.
Turn the mic off. Turn the mic off.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Bob Slater. I have the distinct privilege to be your Sergeant at Arms for today. So do we have any guests? No guests. Probably all for the better with it. Oh, we do have one.
Well, a new Rotarian will be inducted today and will be introduced formally shortly.
All right, so we'll look forward to that, Lorenzo. Thank you. Any visiting Rotarians? Just as a quick aside, the last time I had the privilege to be up here, I talked about the history of women in Rotary. We had a guest from Kingsport, Tennessee, and he came up to me after the session and said his club was the last club in America to admit women. And the president was summoned to wherever you get summoned to explain why they were dragging their feet so much. So how ironic that he would show up on that day. Okay, let's say grace, please, if we'll bow our heads. Dear Lord, we ask your blessing on this food and on those of us here today. May we be grateful for this day that you have given us and not take this gift of life with the many comforts that we enjoy that others do not for granted. Help each of us to become the answer to someone else's prayer. Help us move through our preoccupation with our own affairs to see what we can do today to make someone else's path easier. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, the fine basket was actually stolen from the lobby.
All right,
All right. Thank you, Felix.
that's a good club secretary there.
So let's get the fine basket going around.
That's a good club secretary.
So put $1 in the fine basket if you're going to the football game with your fellow Rotarians. Put $2 in if you're not. Speaking of the football game, speaking of the football game with the Charlotte Panthers, some of you have wondered how can we pull this off for only $100.
We're not pulling it off.
You've ruined my whole setup here. Don't say that. So for $100 for the bus, that was the price for the bus and the tickets. And the reason was John Perry, even though it's not going to happen, John Perry, raise your hand, John, our master negotiator, got a really good deal on a luxury bus with the Department of Corrections. This was the bus you were going to be going in. It was last fumigated in 1974, and everyone was advised. I know a lot of you like to pack heat when you go to football games, but there was going to be a body cavity search, so leave your guns, knives, shanks, and shivs at home. So it's time now for a regular feature called the Rotary Swap and Shop, where members of the club offer various things for sale. Today, Lorenzo, wave your hand, Lorenzo. Lorenzo is offering a piece of office equipment for sale. And here it is. It's a lightly soiled office chair. Normally, high-quality office chairs like this go for $350, $400. Well, Lorenzo has marked the price down to $75. Lightly shat chairs like this are in great demand. You'll be the envy of the office when people see you sitting in this chair. So, first person to Lorenzo with the $75 after the meeting gets the chair, and I believe delivery's not included.
50. I'll give you 50.
Rob, this would look great at your law office. Your clients would just, it sets the right tone. All right, so in my brief time today, I'm going to tell you a story of great courage in the face of adversity demonstrated by a UNC alum. And apologies in advance if any of you know the story, but the fellow who brought down Lance Armstrong was a philosophy major at UNC in 1993. His name was Travis Tigert, and I'm going to give you the abridged version of the story and be off stage here in 7 minutes. So, we have 3 players in the story. We have Travis Tigert. He's our protagonist, and he was the CEO of the United States Anti-Doping Agency. So do the acronym, United States Anti-Doping Agency, the USADA. The mission of the ADA is to punish doping offenses in U.S. Olympic sports. So he is the protagonist. The antagonist was Mr. Armstrong, who is the leader of the U.S. Postal Service cycling team. For purposes of our little story today, don't ask why the always broke U.S. Postal Service is in the business of sponsoring bicycle teams. So it makes no sense to me with taxpayer dollars. But Armstrong was a cancer survivor. the founder of the Livestrong Foundation. Maybe some of you wore the yellow bracelets years ago. And most importantly, the winner of 7 Tour de France titles. While rumors had persisted for years that he was doping, he had always denied it, and he'd never been proven. And we have the third player. We've got Travis Tigert, we got Lance. The third player was a U.S. attorney by the name of Andre Barat, who conducted an almost 2-year investigation into Armstrong for doping-related fraud. And he had at his disposal the FBI, the FDA, and Lord knows, the Postal Service again. And so our story begins on February of 2012, when Barat calls up Tigert, our UNC alum, and says that the government is going to drop its investigation of Armstrong. And then moments later, Barat issues a 3-sentence press release that said there'll be no charges against Armstrong. The investigation is over. No explanation was provided. The decision was applauded by many. Time magazine wrote, "Imagine bringing a guy like Armstrong to trial, a heroic cancer survivor who devotes himself to charity. No wonder Barat folded." Armstrong, of course, lauded the decision and said he was moving on. But not so fast. Tigert knew the evidence against him was strong. He had the testimony of Landis, remember Floyd Landis? And so he wasn't willing to drop it. Within minutes of getting this call, he convened his team and said, "We're going to reopen our investigation. We're going after this guy." And so his team was stunned, but onward they went. So Armstrong responded to the reopening of the USADA's investigation with his usual playbook, which you all may remember: deny, pressure the USADA, file lawsuits, and then attack the messenger personally. He'd been doing this for years. And so he once again denied any wrongdoing. He refused to cooperate in the investigation. He had apologists such as ESPN's Rick Riley, the New York Times. They all were in his camp, couldn't believe that this was being reopened. 2 congressmen, a Democrat and a Republican, called for an investigation not into Armstrong, but into the USADA. So that was real helpful, as you can imagine. And lastly, Armstrong attacked Tigert in the press, depicting him as a zealot and a nut who was after him personally. Death threats were made against Armstrong and his family. One caller threatened to put a bullet in the back of his skull. FBI protection was required for his family, but he pushed on. And he was not determined. So in May, after the announcement by Barat that he was done, in May, he and his team, by May, they'd interviewed 26 witnesses, 11 of them former riders who admitted their guilt. In June, they formally charged Armstrong, and in October, USADA released 1,000 pages of supporting materials. Armstrong was shown to be the ringleader of a doping conspiracy that was, quote, professionally designed to groom and pressure athletes to use dangerous drugs, to evade detection, to ensure its secrecy, and ultimately gain an unfair competitive advantage through superior doping practices. Armstrong was stripped not only of his 7 titles, but banned from the right to compete in any sport again. In Tigert, Armstrong had finally met his match. As a producer of CBS News said, or 60 Minutes said, "I don't think Armstrong ever imagined that Tigert would have the will that he had to see this to the end." So who is this Tigert guy, and what's the lesson for us? One person who has known Tigert since they were 5 years old said he's black and white. He thinks through topics and issues at great length, but when he decides on what he thinks is right, he's unwavering. In Carolina, he was president of the Phi Kappa Alpha fraternity, and they had a popular fraternity brother who wasn't paying his dues, but was still eating in the kitchen. Tigert was asked by some of his brothers to let it slide, and he said, "Well, we could let it slide, but what does that say to those who are paying their dues?" Tigert says he was neither a good athlete, he played high school sports, nor a superb student, but he discovered that tenacity, hard work, and dedication could substitute for natural ability, but only fair play made that possible. His concern is that given the money and fame in sports today, if doping becomes acceptable at the top, that it's only a matter of time before pushy parents will have to decide if what age am I going to inject my kid with steroids or amphetamine or EPO or growth hormone? Because if that's what it takes to make the college team or the high school team, before long it'll be high school and junior high. So what's the point of the story for us? Well, for one thing, pay your Rotary dues on time. You want to enjoy the scrumptious offerings from the savory kitchens of the Sheridan. Pay your dues on time. I do think I'm yet to pass the meatloaf that was served 2 weeks ago, but hopefully that'll happen soon.
See you, Bob.
So beyond paying your dues, it's having strong convictions, believe in something, be awake, alive, and alert, and recognize when your beliefs are being challenged, and have the courage, like Tiger did, to do something about it. It's interesting that Barat had the same information, or access to information, that Tiger had, and in the face of public pressure that, no, Armstrong's such a good guy, and a cancer guy, and this, that, he just folded. And Travis did not fold. He said, I love this quote, for some reason, this is Tiger, quote, for some reason, we put more value on accomplishments than principles. I'd much rather be known as an honorable person who did the right thing. Each of us shows such wisdom. For you Duke fans, I do want you to know that I looked for a story about a Duke grad who showed great courage in the face of adversity, and I was told to go to the fiction section. All right. I'm about off stage, but I have it's part of my contract here, my well-paid contract, that I have to tell an Irish joke. So here we go. The owner of a struggling fried chicken company calls the Pope and says, Your Grace, I have a proposition for you. I want you to change the Lord's Prayer to give us this day our daily chicken. And if you'll do that, I'll donate $10 million to the Vatican. The Pope replies, Thank you, my child, for the kind offer, but it's the Lord's Prayer and I can't change it. After another month of poor sales, the owner calls again, Your Eminence, I really need your help. If you'll change the Lord's Prayer to give us this day our daily chicken, I'll donate $50 million to the Vatican. The Pope says your offer is very generous. With that kind of money, the church could do a lot of good and could support a lot of charities. But again, I must decline. It's the Lord's Prayer, and I just can't change the words. The owner hangs up, but after 2 more months of flagging chicken sales, he calls the Pope back. Your Holiness, this is my final proposition. If you'll change the words of the Lord's Prayer to give us this day our daily chicken, I will give $100 million to the Vatican. After a pause at the end of the line, the Pope says, I'll be back to it. The Pope then convenes the College of Cardinals and says to them, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that the owner of a fried chicken company is going to donate $100 million to the Vatican. The bad news is we've lost the bread account. That joke was a little subtle. I knew that many of you would struggle with it. But when the light bulb goes off, you realize that the Pope was open to selling the words of the Lord. They'd already done it. So I'll give you a little easier joke, and I'm gone, Mike.
Too much of a good thing, Bob. Too much of a good thing.
All right. A man, his wife, and his mother-in-law go to the Holy Land on vacation. While they're there, the mother-in-law dies. The undertaker says to them, well, you can ship her home for $5,000, or we can bury her here in the Holy Land for $150. The man thinks on it for a moment, and he says, just go ahead and ship her home. The undertaker, why would you spend $5,000 to ship your mother-in-law home when it would be wonderful to bury her here in the Holy Land for only $150? The man replies, 2,000 years ago, a man died here. He was buried here. 3 days later, he rose from the dead. I just can't take that
chance. Shake things up a little bit today. Do something different. We don't have a speaker per se today. We're going to have some of the members talk about why they're in Rotary, who they are a little bit. We have grown so much over the last couple of years. We had COVID interrupt us. You know, we haven't been meeting as much. We don't know each other like we used to. So we talked about this as a board, and I made a presidential decision that we're going to try this and do it quarterly and see how it works. Little housekeeping, we've got the teacher supply store coming up 21st, 22nd of this month. If you'd like to donate to this wonderful cause, please make your checks out to East Chapel Hill Rotary Foundation. Please, we are accepting all donations up to the point and past the event. Your generosity is appreciated. We have what I think is the lifeblood of our club, a new member induction today. Let me get Pat Phelan up here to take care of that. Come on up, ex-President Pat.
Mike, may I have a follow-on to the story about Tiger. His father was a UNC graduate and on the swimming team and was as tenacious as his son.
Okay, also there's a documentary if you guys want more of that. Ex-President Pat. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Can we get Lorenzo and Jeff to come on up? Fellow Rotarians, it is a duty of our Rotary Club to add new members from time to time so that we may not only increase our usefulness and influence as a club, but also extend the spirit of Rotary throughout our community and indeed our world. Today, we welcome to our ranks and admit membership to Jeff. Jeff, Rotary is an international organization of business and professional people with more than 33,000 Rotary clubs in over 200 countries. I wish to impress upon you that you have been admitted not only to the East Chapel Hill Rotary Club, but to a worldwide association of over 1.3 million like-minded business and professional leaders. With the pin you're about to receive, you're entitled to travel throughout the world, find a Rotary Club within easy distance, and be warmly welcomed by fellow Rotarians. Even though the language may be different, the food unusual, and location far from home. Jeff, the honor and privilege of Rotary membership also carries with it duties and obligations. You'll be expected to attend our club's regular meetings, to enthusiastically perform your share of club service with our teacher supply store, youth services, monthly family house dinners, bike night, and our dental and service missions, and as well as our other causes. Also to actively participate in our fellowship activities like our holiday party, Valentine's Day lunch, steak night, and pop-up events. And always remember Rotary's motto, service above self. Our goal in Rotary is to encourage and foster, first, the development of fellowship and opportunity as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professions. Third, dignifying each Rotarian with an opportunity to serve society. And fourth, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace throughout the world of people united in the ideal of service and fellowship. Rotary challenges you to live by the Rotary four-way test in all you say or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Do you accept this challenge and commitment? I do. Awesome. Now, please ask all members to rise. Jeff, in the name of Rotary Club of East Chapel Hill, it is now my honor and privilege to formally admit you to membership in our club and ask Lorenzo to affix the pin to your lapel. Let's give him a round of applause. Jeff, if you would just give us a brief update on who you are, how you found us, and if we can give it to about a minute, that would be great.
Lorenzo's coming in 45 breaks.
You're actually our speaker.
Jeff Bloomfield, the way I found you all is Lorenzo here is neighbors with my in-laws, and I think it was my sister-in-law's wedding.
That's right.
And that was like a year ago. probably, yeah, maybe more than a year ago. And he said, you gotta join the Rotary, you gotta join the Rotary. And I avoided him for a while. And then we decided we're gonna move back. Me and my family have lived in Winston-Salem for the last 7 years. And we moved back for my son, who's going to kindergarten here next year. And Lorenzo once again was like, you gotta join the Rotary. And I was like, tell me about it. And it sounded like you guys are a great organization, and I am just thrilled to be involved with fellow service-minded folks as yourself.
All right, we're going to do something different. You probably noticed there's no bios on your table today, right? Because we don't have a speaker. All right, I have gotten 5 members to volunteer to tell us a little bit about why they're in Rotary, what Rotary means to them, what positions they've had in Rotary, and things like that. You know, just to kind of get to know each other again like we talked about. So my first person today, I'm going to start with one of our newest members, but one of the most active members we've had in a long time. She started to help get the green team going. I see her back there smiling now. Let's give a big hand for Miss Liz. I'm going to bring the mic to you, Liz. We're going to keep this very informal today. And I so appreciate you doing this.
For the newer members, I'm Liz Henke. I joined Rotary when in 2020. Why? Well, basically because Brian Keeler said, you need to join Rotary, and nobody ever says no to Brian, so I joined. Then I went to a couple of Alan's Green Team meetings, and I was definitely hooked. It certainly wasn't until I read about Rotary that I really decided to join. Why? Believe it or not, because of Rotary's role in the eradication of polio. I'm, in my position, but I'm also old. And I remember polio. My family had polio. And so when I learned that in '79, Rotary raised $700,000, vaccines, and a ton of volunteers, and vaccinated 6 million children in the Philippines, I said, wow, this is a private organization. And since that time, Rotary has raised way over $1 billion. And last year, there were only 30 cases of polio worldwide. It's an amazing organization. I said, well, as I said, Alan's Green Team was a big draw for me. And when Alan stepped down last year, I've got very small feet, and his shoes were very big, and it took both Tom Shea and myself to try and fill them. Remember the Green Team, we just call it Green Team, is a team. Of course it isn't a team. It's open to everybody. And Tom and I don't actually lead it, we more guide it. So what are we doing in the Green Team? Well, I love the Green Team projects. There's the Litter project that's directed by Linda. I think that's probably the project that's most popular with the club. You really get to know the people you talk trash with. I mean, then Karen led our lithium recycling. Tom Shea has led our tree planting. We've done lots of great things, but of course, the thing that's nearest and dearest to my heart is the Habitat Solar project. Now, this is just for new members, because I know you old members already know this. So what is the Habitat Solar project? Well, in 2020, the Green Team decided to raise $6,500, which we did, to put solar panels on a Habitat home in Orange County. Why do we do such a crazy thing? Well, it's when you put solar on a low-income home, you save that not just 1 month. You save it every month for 30 years. We could pay back tens of thousands of dollars, and it helps interrupt that second party. Of course, we were also thinking of the planet and not burning fossil fuel. Tom's here. Oh, pity, because I was going to dig him a little bit, because you know, one solar install is the equivalent of planting 3,000. Not that it's a competition. So I wanted to mention the solar because it's an example of how a club project can have a much wider impact than you think. So this happened that we put first solar on the Habitat home in 2021. Since that time, we've helped Jennifer Player's team at Orange County Habitat raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they've done, I think, 18 more solar installs in the new visionary Weaver's Grove development, habitat development, mixed income development by the high school here. We just planned the first 12 houses will have solar on it. This has meant that Orange County Habitat is now the leading habitat in the state adding solar. So what else has happened since then? Well, in 2021, we had a port intern from UNC. I say port because we didn't pay him anything. And he went back to UNC and he was so enthusiastic about this project that he started his own club. It's called Solar Equity. They've got over 100 members, and they're now working with CASA and Empowerment, who built very low housing in Chapel Hill to add solar to their new buildings. This is really impressive. This is all from one small pilot project with this plan. In 21, Alan and I and a number of other people joined ESRAC, which is Rotary's Environmental Action Group, and Alan and I joined the Renewable Energy Task Force, and there we wrote a manual based on our experience with Habitat with our project on how to add solar to habitat new builds. And that manual, which is 30-odd pages, was accepted by the Rotary Habitat Partnership, the International Partnership. You probably didn't even know there was one. There's been one since 2016. Now, there wasn't an MOU, we noticed. Now, call me delusional, but once they accepted our manual, suddenly they were signing an MOU between Rotary International and Habitat International. I wouldn't say this club had anything to do with that. Since 2022, the manual has been translated into Spanish. There are Habitat Rotary partnerships in 6 states. There's one in Abidjan, and there's one in Canada. I'm just going to, 30 seconds, say that in Canada, this is very interesting what's happening in Canada. The Wealth Group has partnered with our local habitat to put solar on 70 homes, low-income habitat homes in Canada. Canada Habitat, the whole Canada Habitat organization in Canada is going to partner with them and use that pilot study as a stimulus for having solar put on all habitat homes in Canada. And this is how Rotary works. And this is how a small project in North Carolina, East Chapel Hill Rotary, can have a wider impact.
You already know we were talking Appleseed and solar power is. Now you know. All right, my next person is one of our longtime members, Mr. Perfect Attendance himself, Al Friend.
Yeah.
My name is Al Friend. the street from me one day, asked me if I'd like to join Rotary, and he brought me to this club. Bob Williams was president, Dick Bowman was the sergeant at arms, and I thought Dick was the funniest guy I ever met. He was really alive. So I fell in love with this club right away. I was president in 1988, 89. Long time ago. Things have changed quite a bit since then. Back in the days when there were only men in this club, and it was like a fraternity. We told jokes that were not off color, they were really black. Then I moved on to part of a few big projects that were coming down the line. One was I'm sorry, but I'm just off the wall here. Our mission trips. Mike Fields put together a group of 6 guys to figure out what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. So we met at Mike's house a couple times, and he did business in Haiti. So we decided we'd check out Haiti. So the 6 of us flew into Port-au-Prince. Man, I'll tell you what, that is one hellhole of a place on earth. We spent 3 days driving all over that country, trying to figure out what we wanted to do and where we wanted to do it. The hospitals, meeting with people in their building. We finally decided on a mission, Baptist mission up in the mountains. And the next year we went back and set up our dental mission up there. And we only went back at one time. It was so dangerous there, even at gas stations. They had armed guards with sawed-off shotguns standing at the gas pumps. Outside of all the hotels and the restaurants and everything, there were armed guards. So one time was enough for us, and we got out of there. And then we started going to Honduras. And boy, that's a beautiful country. I could tell you some stories about that. Me and I were friends there, and he asked me if I was going to tell any stories about Honduras. There's so many of them that what happened in Honduras stays in Honduras. The other thing I was engaged with was Roger Jennings put together an idea where our Rotary Club would sponsor a Paul Harris Fellow every year. And he chose 6 of us to sit down and figure it out. We only had 2 Paul Harrises at the time. Ron Link, whose father-in-law was a Rotarian in Wisconsin or someplace, he bought him one. And Phil Rominger was another one. His wife bought him one. So then Denny Ellis and Rich Gonzalez and Al Viper and me, we all met at Denny's house one night, come up with a plan on how we were going to choose Paul Harris Fellows. So that's how we got started. But this club has been a very special part of my life. And I'm hoping that all you young guys can help keep it together while all those old guys sit on the sidelines and watch you guys. God bless all of you.
Al also was instrumental in starting up our bike project. He was just kind of modest about things.
No. It was Dick Bedore. I was on his board.
Oh, you're on the board. Okay, sorry, Dick. I didn't steal your thought.
I'm never going to talk to you again.
I'm not a chat with you. You're going to talk to me.
The bicycles were old bicycles that we collected from around town for like a month or 2 before. And then we met for 3 days a week for like 4 weeks. Refurbishing these old bicycles, painting them, putting them, it was a mess. Nothing like we do today.
Also, when I first joined the club, we did Paul. You were nominated for a Paul Harris Fellow with other Paul Harris fellowship in the club got together every year and picked a couple people that I thought were deserving of the club. And our club itself paid the $2,000, is it $1,000 to the Rotary International for the Paul Harris Fellow. Then the district finally told us we had to come to step with everybody else, and now your dues, everybody gets Paul Harris through their dues now. But it was a really cool thing our club did for quite some time. We changed with the times, what you have to do. Okay? Our next contestant here on Mike's Floor Show is Mr. Cliff Button.
I work every Friday, and Ed Loudermilk pestered me for about 5 years to get in here. Finally, I had a partner who was lazy enough that I told him I'd work 3 extra hours on the hardest day of the week, which was Monday, if he would work 3 extra hours on Friday so I could come to here. And that was 1981, so it's been coming a long time, thanks to Ed. When I joined, the very first year they said, you're going to be Sergeant at Arms. Well, it's different now. You do it once every now and then. You did it 40 times. And you did it 40 times. And some of my favorite, when I joined, I thought this was brilliant. They told me sometime a program won't show up, and you're going to have to give your autobiography. And so be ready. And so I brought my autobiography every week for about 3 months, and finally I had to go up. Well, I had this thing, so I flipped it over, and it said my autobiography. And then I flipped the next one, it said, the first car I ever owned was 1950. And I went through every car I'd ever owned and how I affected my life, which I thought was really good. I wish I'd saved it. And also I've been a member 2 years, and they had a girl from Scotland coming over to do a year at Carolina, and they needed somebody to sponsor her, and so London and I sponsored her, and that turned out to be fantastic. She's still one of our best friends, and if we go to England or in the British Isles, she always meets us. Where she was wonderful, the last one I sponsored wasn't that good. This was only a couple of years ago. Mark Cleary taught me into this. And so this is an Italian who lived 10 years in Paraguay, married to a Bolivian. And I said, she'll be here 2 or 3 days, and that's all at your house. And I said, okay, we'll do it. Well, she brought her 4-year-old who didn't speak English yet, and he was like a feral animal. And I had 4 cats at the time, and she also brought her cat who didn't speak English. And my cats freaked out. I didn't see them, and instead of staying 3 days, she stayed a month. And that feral 4-year-old, let's see, broke all 3 of my televisions. He took the doorknob off, going downstairs. I don't know how he did that. And where you might step on the garbage can, the lid pops up, he broke that. He broke the handle off the kitchen sink. I should have written it all down, because that's just the beginning. I'm so glad for that month was over. But don't let it discourage you. Here are the others that I've sponsored, and they were all wonderful, besides Paraguay and Scotland. Finland, well, I hate to tell you this. The guy from Finland said his parents were coming over. Could they stay with us a couple of days? They wanted to see the United States. They didn't want to see the United States. They wanted to see my house. They didn't leave for 30 days. When I was gone, they walked around that park I lived next to. And I'd come home there, they'd be sitting on the couch. Anyway, that one didn't work out. England, France, Thailand, Hong Kong, all of those were wonderful, except the best looking girl from France stayed with my buddy over there, and that almost caused him to get divorced. You didn't work that out, didn't you?
Worked out just fine.
And I've probably done 100 sergeant at arms over the years, telling them about my family. When you people don't realize how weird my family is. But two of my favorites, was when Matt Doherty was here, and I told him about my misadventures playing football and basketball at Carolina, because nothing good happened to me during that, and some days I'll relate that to you. And and my programs, I had about 75 programs lined up when I became president, and I only needed 40. And so my program chairman didn't have to do any Bible orders as my program chairman.
Great job.
The two I had that I loved that we haven't duplicated since was my buddy, who was the biggest bail bondsman in Raleigh. He came here with some incredible tale, and we laughed. He's a big old redneck with 4 bullet holes in him. And just everything he said was funny. He wasn't even trying to be funny. And then I had Miss USA Best Physique. Just 2 weeks earlier, she won the Miss USA bodybuilding competition. And right over there with Bob Sibley, she gave a great talk on her nutrition, and then she did her routine, showing what muscles were required. So it was a memorable day. Oh, and I'm the only one I think that hasn't published. This is my year as president of Rotary. Steve Frommey did such a great job doing the weekly bulletins that it got written. It's published right here. And when I reread them, there were some things I'd forgotten that were really fun. But the people he mentioned that I miss so much, Rich Gonzalez, Brian Staver, Paul and Sally Ransford, Don Heineman, Say Sayowitz, Ron Link, all of them were mentioned in here, and thinking about how much I miss them really brought back memories.
Thanks so much.
Cliff also forgot to mention, he's the only guy we know that carries a putter that he putts from both sides, left hand and right hand. Is it long putts right-handed?
Yeah, but it's amphibious.
He's amphibious. It's true. In his family, he carries now. He still walks in golf, y'all. He carries about 6 clubs.
When it's over 90 degrees.
Yes, he has a rule. But he has a putter. He putts. He does, and he's pretty good at it. All right, Ed Loudermilk, you're next.
Okay. Well, I did sponsor Cliff Butler.
Nice segue, eh?
But I figured years later I sponsored Fred Kiger to try to make up for it. But, yeah, in the days before, you didn't get asked, you didn't say, hey, I want to join. You didn't even know you were being considered for a member, as a member, until you passed all committees, and then you were invited. That's how it worked. And so I'm supposed to go by these questions. When did I join? A long time ago, in the 70s. Why did I join? I didn't know I was being considered. And Dave McGowan told me to come with him and have lunch, which I did. And look at all these famous people in here, these important people. What am I doing here? And Dave said, you'll see. And so the positive experiences I've had, I'll go with you. I was asked to do one project and then help another project. And it was fellowship learning about service. And you'll see what I mean. I've been on several boards. I was past president in '93. I was editor of the Scuttlebutt back when it used to be mailed to your house. We had fun doing that. Now, the medical missions, that's something that'll stick with you. I mean, there's things I still think about, and just glad I could do what I did. Promised myself I wouldn't tell any stories. I'm going to tell one. The little kid came up and said, Abuela, come see the old lady. I said, okay. So I went over there, and everybody there sold Pepsis next to the guy that's doing the same thing, but that's how they, I don't know how they existed. But she had fallen a year before, broken something, I think maybe might have been a hip, and she crawled back to her house and had stayed there for a year in pain. So, okay, in the absence of an orthopedic surgeon, I loaded her up with some ibuprofen and told her how to take it and everything like that. And then I went to see the other folks, and the next day the little boy says, wait, look, wait, let's be in. And I go back, and she got tears coming out of her eyes because she didn't hurt for the first time in a while. So, needless to say, I left her enough ibuprofen until we were going to come back again. One more story. A guy came into where we are with his little boy wheezing. He's having an asthma attack. He's about that big, and got to help him. Well, I had some inhalers, but you're not going to use an inhaler in the middle of an asthma attack. So we had some lozenges there just for candy. So I said, I'm going to try this. So I said, put the lozenge in your mouth, hold it, and wait. And that calmed him down. Then we filled him up with water like you're supposed to. And so then I spent the next 10 minutes teaching him how to use an inhaler. Well, I've taught hundreds of kids how to use inhalers, and didn't think anything of it. Time passed, we were back at the hotel, and his mother and father had ridden the bus and walked a mile and caught another bus to come to where we were staying to thank me. I thank all of us. Stuff like that stayed with me. What else have I done? I had to write this down or I'll forget it. The bike project, I'm working with it again. Last year we went out to deliver bikes to a disadvantaged neighborhood, and we had 19 bikes, and the social worker picked 19 kids, and we got in there and took them off the truck, and we saw what happened. And if you do that once, you'll know why you did it. And we made a bunch of happy kids. Let's see. Then the next question is, why should anyone join Rotary? Fellowship. You start with the fellowship, then you learn about the service. And you think, well, it might help my business some. If it does, okay, that's fine, but that's not why you're here. You're here for the service that's going to follow. Make friends, you make friends of a lifetime. I'm sitting here with people here I've known a very long time, and some of my best friends. And then it says, what else is going on in my life? Well, I'm supposed to be retired from Piedmont Health. I'm a pharmacist, by the way. I'm supposed to be retired from Piedmont Health. I worked in retail till it got so terrible that I got into the clinical track and had a good time because I finally got to do what I was supposed to be doing. And then I retired. Then they called me back. I'm working 3 days next week. I work with the Department on Aging, and I make visits to homebound citizens, seniors, who have their medicines all screwed up. On a reference from a deputy sheriff or a social worker, that could you go see this lady, and they can get them screwed up. So we do everything on the kitchen table, and that's the same as that. That one's brown and that one's white. But if you take them both, that's why you're dizzy when you stand up. So we do all that stuff to get them straightened out. And I do a little work with Meals on Wheels. And I just got my 40-year pin from the Boy Scouts. I was Scoutmaster for 22 years. And then I said, well, let's see. You know, it's adventure crew chief for a while because you can slow down on that. Can't keep up with a 14-year-old, so I'm just a committee member doing what they need doing. And they ran out of people to give it to, so the National Court of Honor gave me the Award of Merit, and to which I said thank you. My wife and I travel. We 4 years ago we went down to Western Caribbean. This year we went down to Eastern Caribbean, and we learned something. We were 4 years older. Anyway, so we're taking the smaller trips on the paddle boats up and down the Mississippi, and that's fun. My wife Dee has put up with me for 50 plus years, and that's a blessing. This club is a blessing. You'll find that. Let's see. Oh, if you see me wobble, I'm having this knee replaced in 2 weeks. So I wobble, come by it honest. Now, back to my sponsor, Dave McGowan, all those years ago, said, well, what can I do? Well, I found out, and you guys will too.
Thank you, Ed. Also, if you're ever in a foreign country and you sprain your ankle, he's the man to know. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. We're finally going to hear from our last member today, Mr. Larry.
Hello. My Rotary experience is a little different than everybody else's because this is the 4th Rotary Club I've been a member of. And one thing I have to say about every Rotary Club is similar. Now, every Rotary Club is different, but every Rotary Club has one table of curmudgeons. I don't know what it might be that one. But I told Jeff when we were talking about Rotary, I said, one of the best things you can do is find the table of curmudgeons and set them. Because normally they're past presidents, they've been in the club a long time, and they've done everything. So you'll learn more from that one seat than you will the rest of the time you're here. So I believe you guys got the honor.
Thank you for that honor. It's a whole lot different than Omar, I will say.
But you hear some bad jokes.
But you hear them often. I joined Rotary in August of 1983, so this is my 40th anniversary in Rotary. I started in Goodland, Kansas, and why did I join? Family tradition. My grandfather was a charter member of the Rotary Club in Goodland, Kansas. My father was a member. I didn't have a choice. But I've loved every bit of it. I remember going to Rotary meetings with my father and eating the biggest cinnamon rolls in the world. And so I thought that was really what Rotarians did. So, but it's all about service. And what positions have I had? I've been president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, program chair, which is, I think, the hardest job of all, to be a good program chair. And as far as projects I've worked on, the Goodland, Kansas Club was a relatively small club, about 50 members, but we did some pretty big things for a small town. As a little kid, I remember participating in the Howdy Rowdy Rodeo, where I got to ride a sheep, and I didn't have a helmet or pads or any of this other stuff that they have now. But we did that, and we chased pigs, and we did a variety of other things that you do in a small rural town. And then the most recent project was in Colorado Springs. I was in Denver for a couple of years and member of the Cherry Creek / Rotary Club. And then we moved down to Colorado Springs. My wife worked for Children's Hospital of Colorado, and they asked us to go down to Colorado Springs because they're starting a new hospital down there. Well, little did they know that we'd been members of the Garden of the Gods Club in Colorado Springs for 20 years. My parents were members before me. So we took that hardship down to the Springs and moved down there, and then I joined the Rotary Club in Colorado Springs. And I joined the Downtown Rotary Club, which is about 150 members. I visited several other Rotary clubs around, but I like the Downtown Rotary Club because of their projects and their service projects. They generate about a little over $200,000 a year from what they call the Flight Project. They have butterflies, dragonflies, a variety of other things fabricated, and it's just stamped metal. And then they have artists through the community paint these butterflies and dragonflies. And they're 6-foot sculptures, but they're incredible. You'll be playing golf, you'll see them in people's backyards. You'll be driving through the community. They might be in people's offices, but they'll be like, they're 6 foot. They're 3.5 to 4 foot wingspan. and they're about 5 feet tall. But they're incredibly, the artists line up to participate in this program. But they sell from anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 a piece. And it's a gala, and it's a lot of fun. And as we all know, if you've had a few cocktails, your hand goes up easier. So that was probably one of my most memorable projects. Why would anybody consider joining Rotary? I think fellowship and service. And as we remember, service above self. And the unwritten rule in Rotary is if another Rotarian asks you for help, there's one answer. What's going on in my life? Well, I thought I was out of business. I'm a retired country banker. And my youngest son moved to Pittsburgh. He'll probably be the 4th generation Rotarian. And he's starting a pizza restaurant. And so I've been working on that. But the other thing is, if you know Christy Jones, stay away from her because she finds all kinds of projects for you. Something that people don't know about you. Well, when I was in college, I played football. And I was a freshman, and I had the good fortune of being called up to the varsity program. And we were the Fort Hays State Tigers, but the freshmen were called Cubs. And so they would yell at, bring that Cub up here. And that was me. Well, it went from that Cub to the Cub to Cub. And so all my college fraternity brothers call me Cub. And that's it.
Thanks. I hope everybody enjoyed that program. That was fun. Bob Woodruff, I think you have something of great. Nope, we're not. Okay. Well, folks, we're going in a little early today. I hope everybody enjoyed the program. Have a great weekend. See you next week. I guess we'll be back upstairs next week in our regular spot. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there.